But the government has already proven itself to be incompetent at very best and wholly evil at worst. What is up? My name is Eric. This channel is called Report and Opine. I am back. This, of course, is the epicenter for all of your current and captivating coastal elite chaos. So please hit that subscribe button, like the video, ring the notification bell, leave a comment or two, share this with a friend. Let's go. Now, this is just incredibly predictable, right? Nothing makes sense in the media anymore, and it has been that way for quite some time now. We are all far more surprised when a real or true story is being reported than anything else, and these people are constantly ignoring obvious contradictions and hypocrisies. Back in 2020, the summer of love, it was all defund the police, and for the next 2 or 3 years, it was rising crime in probably every major city across the country. Nationwide news, smash and grabs, follow home robberies, car break-ins, scams, the list goes on. Then it was, okay, maybe the cops aren't so bad. You have the San Francisco DA and mayor claiming that they're going to crack down.
People will be safe. We have more police officers, both uniform officers as well as plainclothes police officers that will be all around this area. And just to give you some perspective, because despite the challenges that exist with limitations around our laws, our officers are still making arrests. We're seeing a decline in retail theft. We're seeing a decline in car break-ins. And we are working very hard to ensure that we're doing everything we can to prevent these things from happening in the first place.
You know, we have deployment with the retail theft operations that happen in this area, the organized retail theft, like the ramming of the Dior store a couple of weeks ago. We were right there, and unfortunately we couldn't prevent it, but we captured the people that did it, and they were prosecuted. Yeah. You know, that is what is going to take.
We have now turned the corner on the culture here in San Francisco with respect to retail theft. And as the district attorney, I have made it clear that we will prosecute those who commit theft in our city. No longer can we view retail theft as a low-level crime. No longer can we view retail theft as less serious.
You have the NYPD putting their RoboCop on the subway platform, and this particular story is from New Jersey, so it's a little bit different, but not really. There's also the anti-theft vending machines popping up in stores. There's the AI weapons detectors popping up in schools. And just like how the media is now batting at the top of the order with the old trusty Trump is a dictator narrative, there's this anti-cop rhetoric that's coming back to light just a little bit. And they're quite honestly telling you, we don't like cops. We're going to replace them with robots, which is the best thing they can think to come up with, because when everybody is calling these cities lawless dystopian wastelands, why not bring in more robots? You can't defend yourself. The cops can't defend you. They're racist, so we're just going to bring in some more robots. And now this story, and it's kind of getting repurposed by several news outlets in almost the exact same wording, kind of like that this is dangerous to our democracy clip that was floating around or makes the rounds every now and then.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Anyways, some cops went to a conference in New Jersey. There was some naughty words said. The training was undermining new reforms, which of course just means that the new anti-cop pro-criminal protocols are not being followed. Very scary stuff. And with all that said, the cops, specifically in these deep blue regions, work for the people that hate them. Those cops are enforcing your insane mandates. They are arresting actual peaceful protesters who didn't want to close down their businesses and who didn't want to get that weird experimental elixir that the farm mafia is now demanding everybody inject several times a year now. And they are still doing that, by the way, with this weird triple demic, anyone over 6 months gets the needle narrative. But let's take a look at what these mean old cops are up to. From ABC7 New York, which is a Disney-owned news outlet, New Jersey private police training promoted unconstitutional tactics. OSC investigation finds.
We turn our attention now to the outrage over a police training conference in New Jersey.
The trainers on video tell vulgar stories, glorify violence, and even encourage officers to violate the law.
A dozen local departments took part in the training in Atlantic City 2 years ago, but a state watchdog just released the video today.
New Jersey.
Yeah. I'm sure 2 years ago, the police were actively being encouraged to break the law. I'm sure that's all that happened, nothing else.
Reporter Anthony Johnson is in Hackensack with the details from the report and what the company had to say about it. Anthony.
Yeah, Sandra and Joe, the allegations in this report are scathing. Some 240 police officers from New Jersey attended that conference back in October of 2020.
Oh, I mean, it's scathing. This conference 2 years ago. It took us 2 years to get mad about this, but this is just scathing. This is quite obviously Disney-produced nonsense. It's not even remotely believable.
21. There were 1,000 cops in total at that conference. Now, the state comptroller says a lot of the language they heard was very, very troubling, disturbing, and some of the things that they learned as far as tactics are concerned would be considered unconstitutional.
I don't want to hear those exit. I don't want to die like 91 with hookers and cocaine around me,
That was just one of the comments that raised eyebrows and led the state comptroller to investigate the street cop conference in Atlantic City in 2021.
Oh, my word. How could these grown men say such terrible things? This is so distressing. My pearls are clutched. Give it a rest. This is theatrical at best.
I would be remiss if I didn't remind you or let you know that I have a 3-inch.
I'm not the one with the 1-inch.
There's a lot of foul language and comments that may make many cringe.
Ask he or she, him, her, she, him, whatever you want to call people now.
According to the report, no one attending the week-long conference complained, even though the event talked about tactics that are unconstitutional.
Private post-academy training like street cops is unregulated with essentially no oversight. The company can teach whatever it wants. It's a free-for-all.
Look at this little weasel. You can tell he is up to no good. This is unregulated. They can do whatever they want. This is like a little weirdo hall monitor establishment shill hack.
These are some of the local towns and cities that sent officers and police chiefs at taxpayer expense to the street cop conference.
What happened in Atlantic City in October 2021 was a pep rally for bad policing that taxpayers paid for.
They are now, imagine my shock. They are all so concerned about the taxpayers footing the bill for this. Crazy, right?
Comptroller adds that when officers violate the rights of citizens, it leads to lawsuits that are settled with taxpayer dollars. Some comments at the meeting were sexist. These comments were made in front of mostly men in a state where only 11% of the officers are women.
What this training did was normalize discriminatory and harassing behavior.
Our state, unfortunately, has this long history of racialized policing with communities of color that, are bearing the brunt of abuses.
Oh, racialized policing. It means absolutely nothing. I'm genuinely curious as to who can watch this and say, oh, yeah, they're right. This is so bad. Like, who looks at that little comptroller, that little weasel? Who looks at this little woman with little glasses and turtleneck and it's racialized? And she's never going to explain that, quite obviously. But who is this convincing?
And so when we see trainings like this, it's just really alarming.
The head of Street Cops defended his organization, stating there is not one single instance in the OSC report where we have advocated any practice that is inconsistent with quality policing. Isolated excerpts taken out of context from a week-long training are not reflections of the overall quality of the education that Street Cop provides.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the city of Newark was on the comptroller's list, but we reached out to them. They said they did not send any police officers to that event, once again back in October of 2021. And we reached out to other agencies that said they didn't send their officers down there because when they looked at the agenda, it raised some red flags.
Yeah, I'm sure plenty of red flags went up. And like I mentioned, who is this convincing? You're not changing any minds. All you're doing is preaching to the choir, trying to enrage your rabid fan base, which I guess on the plus side is sort of dwindling because nobody, left, right, center, up, down, middle, whatever, is really trusting the media anymore. And at the beginning of the report, she says, we're going to take a look at the outrage. But it's like, you guys created the outrage. It's complete AstroTurf as per usual, and the outrage is all over a video from 2 years ago. So why were you not outraged then? That would have been peak outrage time. I can think of maybe one reason why they might be mad about it now. They say the cops are telling vulgar stories and glorifying violence and being encouraged to violate the law. All right, well, it sounds like a bunch of guys being dudes, glorifying violence in a city where they basically have armed guards and dogs outside of Trader Joe's. Give me a break. And being encouraged to violate the law, you have to notice that they say being encouraged, kind of like incitement, and that the law was never actually broken, but it could have been. And if these cops are as stupid as we think everybody else is, then they're going to do what anybody else tells them to do. And this is all happening in a place where you basically walk free for anything short of murder. But if you're defending yourself, well, we don't take too kindly to that. We might take your guns and or send you to jail. You should have let that homeless guy have his way with you as an illegal immigrant flies by on a scooter. He says the language was disturbing and could make people cringe, and the tactics they were training could be considered unconstitutional. So, of course, they are far more concerned with the words than the action. So if somebody commits a crime, it is wrong for you to properly describe who committed what crime. We have to remember also that it is far past time for us to refer to illegals and criminals, that's one and the same, by their preferred pronouns. I think at one point, Bill de Blasio even made it illegal to call someone an illegal immigrant. And the tactics could be considered unconstitutional, as if magically they care about the Constitution now. I mean, it's outdated, right? We should totally just change it, or better yet, just throw it away. And then they bring in that comptroller guy or controller or whatever. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But he says the conference was unregulated. They could just do whatever they want. Meaning, why is this not in our control? We need to get our hands on this immediately. The officers were sent there on taxpayer dollars. What a disgrace this is. Because obviously, that taxpayer money deserves to go to illegal immigrants. I mean, asylum seekers. And they also mentioned, can you believe that only 11% of the officers in that region are women? And we need more lady cops. As cities are quite literally collapsing and being set on fire, we need more lady cops. And I'm sure they will take whatever they can get at this point. I mean, I'm not going to do it. There was also a point in time when I think it was de Blasio, it might have been Adams, but the NYPD lowered the physical requirements because they needed more cops and they didn't have enough donut scarfing fatties who couldn't run a mile on the force already. Then they brought in an ACLU representative, and we all know what the ACLU represents. It's absolute degeneracy, but she comes in and calls everything racist. She does not have to explain it, just wear it, because otherwise you are the bigot. And the OSC, or Office of the State Comptroller, wrote a 43-page report called The High Price of Unregulated Private Police Training to New Jersey about these little clips that were taken out of context. So somebody got paid to sift through a week's worth of cop conference footage to find maybe a minute worth of cops saying naughty words that they didn't like. And this is I mean, this is just the worst thing that could possibly happen. It's unregulated. This is unregulated. We need to control this. And yeah, I guess the police are one of the few things that the government should have complete control of, but the government has already proven itself to be incompetent at very best and wholly evil at worst. And if there were more than just a few clips that video showed, we would know about it. They take one snippet, blow it way out of proportion, because if they had enough substance, they would not hesitate to publish it. And as far as the report is concerned, I did not read all 43 pages, but on one page they say state and local government entities wasted public funds by paying for risky police training. Because again, that money belongs to illegals or Ukraine or Israel or maybe even Palestine. I don't know where it's supposed to go, but you shouldn't be allowed to keep it, and these cops certainly don't deserve it. They also say instructors made over 100 discriminatory and or harassing comments. They go on to name absolutely none of them, and that probably doesn't matter because whatever you say could be described as discriminatory or harassing by these people. They even say specifically, so-called jokes which lead to subjective feelings of humiliation can be found to violate the NJALD, which is the New Jersey law against discrimination. And I get it. Cops aren't comedians. They're not supposed to be comedians, but this is ridiculous. These people are trying to speech police the actual police. So naturally, this conference needs to be regulated, and any cops who attended should self-report it to the Attorney General, they say, turn in any manuals or documents they have received, and just get back to investigating anybody who had a Starbucks coffee in the DC metro area between the days of January 4th and January 8th, 2021.